Lucia had always imagined what life in America might feel like. As a child growing up in Valencia, she would watch movies set in Los Angeles and picture herself walking through wide streets, hearing music from open cafes, and meeting people from all around the world. When she finally stepped off the plane at LAX, it felt unreal. The air was warm, the sky was huge, and everything seemed brighter than she had expected. She carried 2 suitcases stuffed with clothes, a notebook full of plans, and a heart beating with excitement and fear. She had left her family, her friends, and the familiar comfort of her language behind, determined to create something new. Finding a job was her first mission, and after a few days of searching, she discovered a trendy clothing boutique on Sunset Boulevard looking for part-time help. The store had colorful lights, modern music, and mannequins dressed like celebrities. When she walked in for the interview, she felt nervous but hopeful. The manager, a friendly woman named Brooke, asked her a few questions. Lucia tried her best to answer in English, stumbling over words but smiling as she spoke. Brooke seemed to appreciate her effort and said, "We all start somewhere. If you're willing to work hard, you're welcome here." Those words felt like a warm hug. Lucia left the store with a small badge that said, "New team member," and the schedule for her first week. That night, she stood in her tiny apartment looking at the badge, imagining what her life was about to become. She knew her English wasn't strong, but she believed that courage was more important than perfection. On her first morning at the boutique, she arrived early, wearing a simple white blouse and black jeans. She took a deep breath before walking in, telling herself she could do this. Inside, the store buzzed with energy. Customers browsing through racks, co-workers discussing new arrivals, and upbeat music echoing across the room. Brooke handed her a small earpiece and said, "Just smile, greet customers, and help them find what they need." It sounded easy enough, but the moment Lucia heard her first customer speak, she froze. The woman said something quickly, too quickly. Lucia caught only a few words: size, blue, maybe, different style. Her brain scrambled to translate, but everything mixed together like tossed puzzle pieces. She forced a smile and said, "One moment, please," then hurried to ask a coworker for help. Though the customer was patient, Lucia felt embarrassed. Throughout the day she struggled with simple phrases like fitting room, receipt, and returns. When coworkers used slang, words like totally, no worries, or you're all set, Lucia didn't always understand what they meant. Several times she nodded politely, pretending to get it while secretly hoping she hadn't just agreed to something ridiculous. During her lunch break, she sat alone behind the store, feeling a knot in her stomach. She wondered if she had made a mistake by moving so far from home. She wondered if she would ever be able to communicate the way everyone else did. But then she looked at the streets outside, full of cars, people, and endless opportunity. She reminded herself why she came: to grow, to learn, to build a future she could be proud of. She wiped her eyes, straightened her shoulders, and whispered, "I can do this." When her shift ended, she was exhausted but strangely proud. She had survived her first day, and even if she didn't understand every word, she had tried, and that mattered. As she walked home under the warm glow of the evening sun, she promised herself she would improve her English little by little, no matter how long it took. She didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning of a journey that would change her life in ways she never expected. Lucia woke up early the next morning, determined to do better than she had on her first day. She made herself a small breakfast, opened her notebook, and wrote down every phrase she remembered hearing at the store. "Do you need help? Let me check. Fitting room. Receipt." She repeated each one out loud until she felt confident enough to say them without hesitation. On the bus ride to work, she listened to an English learning podcast, pausing every few minutes to mimic the speaker's pronunciation. She knew progress wouldn't come overnight, but she was ready to work for it. When she arrived at the boutique, the store was already busy. New clothes had come in early that morning, and the team was rushing to unpack boxes, hang dresses, and place shoes on display shelves. Brooke handed Lucía a box of folded tops and said, "Can you organize these by color and size?" Lucía understood most of the request, but she hesitated at the phrase, "by color and size." She repeated it in her head and guessed correctly, sorting the tops carefully while glancing at how her coworkers did it. After a few minutes, Brooke said, "Perfect! Keep going like that." The praise gave Lucía a boost of confidence. However, the real challenge began when customers started pouring in. A tall man approached her holding a pair of jeans and asked, "Do these run small?" Lucía blinked. Run small. She had no idea what that meant. Her mind raced through vocabulary she had learned. Run. Small. Too small. Running. Nothing made sense. The man repeated his question more slowly, but she still didn't understand. Nervously, she smiled and said, "Sorry, I check," before going to find a coworker who could help. She felt embarrassed again, but she reminded herself that every misunderstanding was a lesson, not a failure. Later that afternoon, a woman asked for a refund. It was a word Lucía had heard before, but she couldn't remember what it meant. She mistakenly directed the customer to the fitting rooms, thinking maybe refund was a type of clothing. The woman looked confused and asked another employee for assistance. When Lucía realized her mistake, her face burned with frustration. She felt like she was letting everyone down. During her break, she sat in the tiny staff room scrolling through her phone, searching for the meaning of the new words she had heard that day: refund, run small, clearance, restock, and inventory. She wrote each one in her notebook, whispering them repeatedly until she felt them settle into her memory. As her shift continued, she decided to face her fears by interacting more with customers, even if it meant struggling. She approached a young couple browsing jackets and said, carefully, "Do you need any help?" The couple smiled warmly and asked a simple question about sizes. She managed to help them without assistance, and when they thanked her, she felt a small spark of pride. But challenges kept coming. A mother asked her where the kids section was, and Lucía misheard it as kitchen section, sending the woman to the back of the store where staff members kept supplies. A coworker later explained the mistake gently, encouraging her to keep trying. Despite the errors, Lucía noticed something important. Every time she failed, she understood just a little bit more the next time. Words that sounded impossible in the morning became familiar by the evening. Phrases she once feared slowly started to make sense. On her way home, she replayed moments from the day in her mind. She thought about the embarrassing mistakes, but she also remembered the victories, the little wins that proved she was moving forward. She stopped by a small grocery store and practiced ordering in English, even though her voice trembled. When she finally reached her apartment, she sat on her bed with her notebook and reviewed everything she had learned. Her head ached, but her heart felt stronger. Lucía realized that challenges weren't obstacles, they were stepping stones. And though each day brought new difficulties, each day also brought growth. She closed her notebook, took a deep breath, and whispered to herself, "Tomorrow I will be better." Lucía woke up on her third week at the boutique feeling more tired than usual, but also more determined than ever. She had survived the first days of confusion, misunderstandings, and embarrassment, yet something inside her was beginning to shift. Every morning she studied her notebook, every evening she reviewed new words. She still felt nervous before every shift, but now she also felt a spark of hope, the sense that she was slowly becoming part of this new world. When she arrived at the store, Brooke greeted her with a smile and said, "You're catching on fast. Today I want you to help with the front display." Lucía froze for a moment, not because she didn't understand, but because she couldn't believe Brooke trusted her with something important. She helped arrange dresses, fold sweaters, and style mannequins. She watched the others closely and copied their techniques. While she worked, two co-workers chatted beside her using casual English she didn't always understand, but she kept listening, catching new words like aesthetic, trendy, and mix and match. She whispered the phrases quietly, practicing without anyone noticing. By midday, the store grew busy and Lucia's real test began. A teenage girl approached her holding a pink blouse and asked, "Hey, does this come in any other patterns?" Lucía focused on every word and surprisingly understood the question. She smiled and replied, "Yes. Let me check for you," feeling a rush of pride as she walked toward the stockroom. She returned with two more options, and the girl beamed. "Thank you. Your accent is so cute," she said cheerfully. Lucía blushed, unsure how to respond, but the compliment stayed with her like a warm light. Moments like that made her feel brave, but mistakes still followed her closely. A man asked her if the store had a loyalty program, and Lucía misinterpreted the word loyalty as royalty. Confused, she said, "No, we don't sell royal clothes," causing the man to laugh gently before explaining what he meant. She felt embarrassed but also amused. Even she found it funny. Later, while organizing accessories, she accidentally knocked over a tower of folded scarves. They spilled across the floor like colorful waves. A co-worker rushed to help, saying, "Don't worry, we've all done that." Lucía laughed nervously, grateful for the support. Each mistake taught her something new, and little by little she felt her confidence growing. During her lunch break, she sat with two co-workers for the first time instead of eating alone. They asked about her life in Spain, and although she struggled to express herself, they listened patiently. She learned new phrases just by talking with them, noticing how people naturally said things like, "No biggie," "I got you," and "sounds good." Even small conversations felt like victories. After lunch, Brooke asked her to help a customer who didn't speak much English either. The woman was from Brazil, and the moment she realized Lucía also spoke limited English, she relaxed. They communicated with simple words, gestures, and patience. At the end, the woman said, "Thank you, you are very kind," and Lucía felt an unexpected pride rise in her chest. She realized that even though her English wasn't perfect, her kindness, effort, and courage still mattered. Near closing time, Brooke approached her with a gentle smile. "You know, you've improved a lot in just a few weeks. Keep going like this and you'll be amazing." Those words filled Lucía with a strength she hadn't felt since leaving Spain. She walked home feeling lighter, replaying the day in her mind. Yes, she had made mistakes, funny ones, embarrassing ones, confusing ones, but she also learned from each one. She understood more than yesterday, and tomorrow she would understand even more. When she reached her apartment, she opened her notebook and wrote at the top of a new page, "Mistakes are my teachers." And for the first time since arriving in America, she truly believed it. Lucía began her 4th week at the boutique feeling a new sense of strength. She still carried her notebook everywhere, still repeated phrases under her breath, but now she walked into the store with her head held a little higher. Her co-workers noticed the change. She smiled more, panicked less, and even started to understand small jokes customers made. One morning, Brooke asked her to greet customers at the entrance. A month ago, the idea would have terrified her, but now she nodded confidently. She stood near the front door, welcoming people with a bright smile and simple phrases she had practiced. "Hi, welcome in. Let me know if you need help. We have new arrivals today." The more she said them, the more natural they felt. A couple entered the store, and the man said, "Wow, she's so friendly." Lucía felt warmth spread through her chest. No one had ever complimented her ability to speak English before. Later in the day, a customer approached her asking for help with a gift. The woman explained that she needed something stylish for her daughter's birthday. Lucía listened carefully, asking questions and offering suggestions. They talked for nearly 10 minutes, something that would have been impossible weeks earlier. When the woman left the store, she said, "You're wonderful. Thank you so much for your help." Lucía wrote the moment in her notebook that night, marking it as a milestone. But not every moment was perfect. During one shift, she misunderstood a phrase about restocking the back wall and ended up organizing the wrong section. A co-worker gently corrected her, and though she felt embarrassed, she reminded herself, "This is how I learn." And she was right. Each mistake became smaller, less scary, easier to fix. Midweek, something surprising happened. Brooke asked her, "Would you be comfortable helping train a new employee next week?" Lucía stared in shock. "Train someone? Her?" Brooke smiled and added, "You're patient, and you explain things clearly. I think you'd be great at it." The idea filled Lucía with pride. She realized her English didn't need to be perfect to be helpful. What mattered was her attitude, her kindness, her willingness to try. Toward the end of the week, Lucía handled her first difficult customer, a woman upset about a missing discount. Weeks ago, Lucía would have panicked, but now she stayed calm, listened carefully, and repeated key information to make sure she understood. She found a solution, and the woman left satisfied. Afterward, her co-workers congratulated her. One said, "You handled that like a pro." On her way home, Lucía felt something she hadn't felt in months: pride in herself. She was no longer the scared girl who barely understood a single sentence. She was stronger, braver, and more capable than she had ever imagined. She looked at the city lights glowing in the distance and realized something important. She wasn't just learning English. She was building a new life, one word at a time. By the time Lucía reached her 6th week at the boutique, something remarkable had happened. She no longer woke up afraid. The language that once felt like an impossible mountain now felt like a long but walkable path. She still made mistakes, but she no longer let them control her. Instead, she laughed, learned, and kept moving. On Monday morning, the store buzzed with energy as a new shipment arrived. Boxes filled the back room, and Brooke handed Lucía a clipboard. "Can you show our new employee, Tara, how we sort and tag everything?" Lucía blinked for a moment, then nodded confidently. She guided Tara through the process, explaining each step slowly and clearly. To her surprise, the words flowed easily. Tara smiled and said, "You're really good at teaching. I thought you were a native speaker for a second." Lucía laughed, unable to believe how far she had come. Later that day, a family visiting from another country entered the store. They spoke only basic English, and the father looked overwhelmed trying to find sizes for his children. Lucía approached gently, using simple sentences, gestures, and warm patience. She helped them choose outfits, find the fitting rooms, and check out. Before leaving, the mother thanked her deeply. "You helped us so much. You made this trip easier." Lucía felt her chest tighten with emotion. She had once been the confused newcomer. Now she was the one offering clarity and comfort. Midweek brought an even bigger surprise. Brooke gathered the team and announced, "I want to recognize someone who has shown incredible growth, dedication, and heart." Lucía's stomach fluttered. Brooke continued, "This month's Employee of the Month goes to Lucía." The room erupted in cheers. Her co-workers clapped, whistled, and hugged her. Lucía's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of pride. She held the small certificate in her hands, remembering her first day, the confusion, the fear, the mistakes. Now she stood tall, surrounded by people who believed in her. That night, as she walked home under the city lights, she thought about everything that had happened since she'd arrived in America. She thought about the words she couldn't understand, the conversations she once feared, the moments she had almost given up. And she thought about the victories, big and small, that shaped her journey. She unlocked her apartment door, sat at her small kitchen table, and opened her notebook. On a fresh page, she wrote, "I didn't just learn English. I learned courage." She closed the notebook slowly, smiling at the life she was building. Her future suddenly felt bright, open, and full of possibility. Lucía knew she still had much to learn, but now she believed something she once doubted. She was strong enough to succeed, anywhere in the world.